Hello and welcome to Off My Shelves, and in this episode we're going to be looking at Harrow County, the library editions, published by Dark Horse and written by Cullen Bunn and drawn by Crook. And so we will get underway. So some of you may already know, this month, the month of July 2021, I'm going to be focusing pretty much exclusively on Dark Horse books, and that's because back in 1986, in February 1986, Dark Horse Comics was founded, which is 35 years ago, and in July 1986, 35 years ago this month, they started publishing and launching their new titles. And so what better excuse to look at my favourite comic book publisher than to dedicate the whole month to it anyway. And so to kick it off, we're going to be looking at Harrow County, the library editions by Cullen Bunn and Crook. And first and foremost, the build of these books. All of the books are uniform. They all come with dust jackets, but underneath the dust jackets, each one has its own unique wraparound art. They've all got exceptionally good binding, as you would expect from Dark Horse library editions. Really, they open up really wide, all sewn binding. Great little eye to give you full view of Crook's astounding art in you, which we will get to definitely. The size and scale of them are the library edition size, so they're a bit bigger than your average kind of omnibus and deluxe edition. And yeah, they generally, oh, and I can't forget coming with the ribbon. They all come with the ribbon, and it's an extra thick black ribbon this time. I know ribbons are a big thing for some of you guys out there. The finish itself on the dust jacket is this matte finish, so it's not a glossy finish, and the same for the hardboard underneath. So they are a bit of a fingerprint magnet really, but either way they are incredibly well made books, and they are a little hard to come by now, particularly volumes 2 and 3, but they are beautiful. I mean, even if you line them up and look at the spines should tell you all you need to know about the quality going into these books really, because when you line them up on the dust jackets and underneath the dust jackets, the spines line up to feature this tree, this old tree, this one of the central points of this story of Harrow County. So while we move it on to the story, we'll get cracking with that. I will try my best to not spoil many things really at all, but you have to talk kind of broadly about the story. So Harrow County is this southern American agricultural village really. In a weird time frame really. You get the idea that it's post, 1930s, 1950s, it's in there somewhere, but the year is kind of, it's certainly stylistically in that period, but Harrow County itself is obviously a little bit behind the times. So outside of Harrow County always seems a bit more modern when it is featured. And it starts off with the death of Hester Beck, who the locals of Harrow County have made a decision that they have to kill this witch. For many years this witch helped the townsfolk prosper and heal wounds and all this type of thing. But now she's got too dangerous and they all are terrified of her, so they all club together to kill her. And she's very much like Rasputin in many ways, in terms of you have to do many different things to actually kill her, and they eventually end up hanging her and burning her upon this tree. And that's the tree you see on the spines really. It's a central point of the story, is this tree. But one of the things Hester Beck says when she's passing away is that she will return and you will see her once more. So it's very much a horror series. There's lots of witches and lots of kind of gruesome scenes and demons and haints, as they called. Interestingly enough, I found out while reading this book, because I hadn't heard the phrase haint before, which is referred to as, demons and ghosts and that type of thing. Haint is actually derived from an old Welsh word, so there you go, another connective tissue from Wales to America. The story then jumps forward to Emmy, and Emmy is the daughter of one of the townspeople, and she's about to turn 18, and she's starting to show signs of being witch-like. And so the townsfolk and her father are starting to be a bit weary of her, so they're keeping an eye on her really. And she's constantly consumed by dreams of the tree that Hester was hung upon, coming alive and consuming her in some ways. Now, in fairness to the story, quite early on, it plods along at quite a brisk pace, and you quite quickly get to grips that Emmy is in fact a witch, and the closer she gets to her 18th birthday and then eventually getting to 18, she suddenly starts developing these powers that she has control over. She's not spouting different spells or anything like that. She's literally kind of can make things happen with a thought or a gesture. So she's quite a powerful being, really. And early on as well, she finds the skin of a boy, which plays heavy into her kind of witch mythology and mythos, really, because this skin of a boy who she chases and the boy runs away, she finds his skin and then takes it because the skin is talking to her. But then the rest of the boy is out there wandering around, and he becomes her familiar of sorts, so he becomes her protector and her friend, really. But he's always this skinless boy wandering around, and then when he talks to her, he's talking through his skin, so it's really weird. But the skinless boy storyline and that character overall, him and Emmy, are just amazing characters, really. And the more you go on, the more you realise that Emmy could quite possibly be Hester Beck reborn, and the townspeople are terrified by this fact, so they try to kill her. She realises quite early on again that they can't kill her, that she's far too powerful for them to even mess with, really. And so they come to a bit of an impasse, and they allow Emmy to continue on, and they live with her essentially, but they are living in the fear that she could quite possibly be the reborn Hester Beck. And not only are they living with that fear, Emmy is terrified as well, because she just wants to be a normal girl. But she heals quick, she can do stuff with her mind, she can do stuff with her gesture. Haints and demons listen to her when she speaks, so she knows she's something, but she hopes she's not the reborn Hester Beck. So volume 1 also introduces the wider cast of characters, so her friend Bernice, her father, other townspeople, other villagers, the skinless boy, and this cast of characters is great because they're quite diverse, and Bernice in particular is one of those characters that in the first volume is kind of on the peripheral, but then she gets really heavily involved in the story and is a very central point of the story as we go forward through the different volumes. So volume 1 pretty much plods along, but then volume 2 really raises the game massively. And volume 2 is probably my favourite because it really jumps into whole new swathes of characters like Levi and loads of other people, to be honest. Loads of other people that have powers exactly the same as Emmy, but they're slightly different. Their skill set is more extreme in one way than the other, but I won't spoil it by telling you exactly what their strengths and powers are and things like that. But either way, the cast of characters grows, and it really does become far larger in scope, because in the first volume you think you're dealing with a simple witch story, but then the second volume really opens it up and you realise that Hester Beck is not in fact a witch. She is one of a group of beings that have been around on the planet and on the earth for many, many years, way before humans. And she is one of these kind of all-powerful mortal people that roam the earth. So this second book really tears down any preconceived notions that you might have had in volume 1 about who Hester Beck is, about it being a specific witch story and just about Harrow County. It really becomes about these immortal beings and about how they interact, and about how Harrow County itself was formed, because it's one of the things that are outlined in the first volume as well, is Hester Beck is so powerful that she for the most part created almost everything you will see in Harrow County. It is her own little playground, but her brothers and sisters and other mortals don't believe that Hester Beck should have ever done what she did at Harrow County, and so the story keeps getting more in depth and spreading and sprawling out and bringing these different characters in. The one thing I will touch on before, because we've touched on loads of parts of the story again already, is the artwork in here. Tyler Crook's artwork for the most part is just all out absolutely stunning. It's hand watercoloured, and again in the volume extras, in all of the extras in the books, he goes through his process, and it is just gorgeous how he's layered and created this world of Harrow County, and the palette that he uses with his watercolour brushes is just gorgeous. It's some of the best art you will see in modern comics. It might not be to everyone's taste because it's quite cartoony and quite expressive and stylized, but for me, for my personal preference, it is absolutely beautiful, and I was blown away. Sometimes because a lot of the pages tell the story visually, which is great, and I don't have many words, but those pages I just linger on. And also the pages to start off each chapter of the story, so each individual issue of the story, every issue starts off with this sprawling landscape that says the words Harrow County, so every issue starts with that. But some of them it becomes like a little game. Some of them you can't really see where Harrow County is written, so sometimes I spent about 10 minutes trying to find where Harrow County was written on these splash pages that open up each chapter. But it is just a gorgeously drawn and painted book, honestly, on every single level. Even if you don't kind of like horror books and that type of thing, just from an artistic point of view, you should definitely give this a look. It is available in trade paperbacks and in single issues, and there's an omnibus version coming out now if you do struggle to get a hold of these library editions. But these library editions, for my money, would be the way forward. The introduction as well, I've never seen such an innovative and interesting introduction to books, to be honest. Chris Swiger, I think I'm pronouncing that terribly, but he draws and illustrates an introduction to each of the volumes, apart from volume 1, I think. And yeah, it's great that you've got an illustrated introduction, which I can't think I've ever seen in another book before, really. But it's really brilliant, and the way he talks about the story, his love for the story just screams out, really. If I was to give any criticism to these in any way, shape or form, it would fall unwittingly on to volume 3, because by the time you get to volume 3 there's a lot of unanswered questions, there's a lot of exposition to get through. So volume 3 is saddled with a lot of weighty exposition, really. So a lot of issues get to grips with the history of these immortal beings, the rules around them, how they existed for so long, what they do, where the rest of them are gone. And so it really lays in heavy to the exposition. Sometimes it gets a little bit much because you want to continue Emmy's and Bernice's story forward, but ultimately it's not really a massive criticism because the exposition is interesting to the story, but it is a lot of exposition in volume 3, really. But then on the flip side, volume 4 of the library editions is basically all out kind of end fight, really. The whole book is essentially the end battle between, well, I won't say who's between, actually, you can figure that out for yourself, but certainly Emmy gets to grips with a lot of her power and various things occur, and the final volume is almost similar to like a video game in some ways, because she gets these different layers of bosses, if you will. So she gets through one thing and then another one comes and then another one comes until this great huge final battle. But essentially it ends brilliantly for me. I don't think it lulled massively at all, apart from, as I say, the exposition in volume 3, but I thoroughly enjoyed this, and I can't wait to get more Cullen Bunn on my shelves, and I can't wait to get more Tyler Crook in particular, because his artistry in these is just one of the standout things of these books for me, definitely on every level. Each of the book does come with the extra 1 to 2 page editions of the Tales of Harrow County, and some of them are brilliant. They're drawn and written by a whole range of different creators. Tyler Crook writes some and draws some, but then others draw some. I think David Rubin draws a few, and yeah, they are brilliant little 1 or 2 page stories that are all piled into the back, but I think in the original single issues would have appeared in the back of certain issues and certain comics. But that's, yeah, my look at Harrow County, the library editions by Cullen Bunn and Tyler Crook. Hopefully you will get out there and try them for yourself, because they are well worth a read, definitely, and I will be back with you with more Dark Horse comic books very soon, I'm sure. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.